success for me really was me and of course KK as well was really about building a good company, building a good culture, right? So we didn't come from this unicorn era of founders, right? We came from the 2008 era when starting up wasn't very cool. It was not fancy. It was not even your parents would oppose you if you wanted to start up back then, right? So success for us. In fact, I remember having this conversation with KK that, I think if in a year or two we can pay ourselves the same salaries we were making in ITC and in Microsoft, I think that would be success.
Hi, and welcome to Indian Explorers. In this podcast, we talk about Indian success stories. I am Sabrina, and together with my co-host Amit, we will get to understand the journey of our guests and what drives them. The optimism, patience, idealism, and courage, these are their attributes which we want to bring to life in these conversations with them. If you enjoy the show, please hit the subscribe button and share it with others. Hey, what's on the agenda today?
I'm excited today, Sabrina. We're speaking to somebody who I met 12, 13 years ago, very briefly in his office. I don't think he'll remember me, but he's in retail technology. And looking forward to talk to him. We have some mutual friends as well. And the sooner we get into it, the better.
Yeah, I read about his background. It's very impressive. But I wanted to, you bring up technology. Big technological news happening in the US this week. The House of Representatives passed a bill to ban TikTok in the US. The company has, a certain amount of time to sell the company to a US based company. It has slowed down on the Senate floor before it's introduced. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I heard they gave 6 months to sell the whole company. I just find it a little bit ironic that it happens to be in an election year that this happens. I don't know if you remember in 2020, this happened in India. It was June 2020, I remember. But India didn't ban TikTok. They banned TikTok, WeChat, Weibo, Shine. They banned like 50 apps. And it was the same argument, national security concerns and data privacy. So I think because they did it in the middle of COVID, it kind of fell under the radar and it wasn't a big deal. And also, when this happened in India, there was about 1.2 million creators who relied on TikTok. 1.2 million people for India is under 0.1% of the population. In America, though, 170 million active users use TikTok.
And I wonder,
under 39 years old, 69%.
Yeah.
So
that's not only
I think 67%.
So that's not only a huge voting demographic, right, in an election year, but also I wonder about what percentage of those are content creators that make a living off, their content on TikTok. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
So my
those
question
people are
this
not going to
morning,
vote for Biden.
Oh yeah. My question this morning, as I was talking to Noel about it, was why hasn't there been a U.S. company to create a similar product as TikTok? Why? What do you think?
I think, I think YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, they're all very similar, right? That's the reason why they've created the Reels and the Shorts. Look at India. In India, these 1.2 million people that I mentioned, they're not dead. They've just moved on to Reels and YouTube Shorts and Facebook and Meta and all the other platforms that are out there. So I think they'll survive. Is my point. My bigger issue is the security concerns and the propaganda. Let's talk about each one. Right, propaganda. I myself, Sabrina, I'm not sure if my views on the Israeli-Palestinian debate is actually being altered by TikTok. But what I do know is that when I watch TikTok, it's say in an hour, Say in an hour, I see 100 videos. Out of those
Hmm.
100 videos, 90 of them are pro-Palestinians, and only
Okay.
10% is pro-Israeli.
Yeah.
Now, we know the Americans obviously are with Israel, right?
Hmm.
And only 10% of the videos was, America/Israel, and 90% was, let's just say, rest of the world. Does that mean that the Chinese are purposely putting the algorithm so that we see more views of, hey, America and Israel are bombing innocent people,
Yeah.
and therefore we're shifting our mind because of that? Imagine if instead of 100 videos, instead of 90/10, imagine we saw 90 videos of Hamas people with the hostages and treating them badly, raping
Right.
the women, and only 10% of the friendly protesters of the pro-Palestinian. What would my mind be thinking now? So I think it's a heavy propaganda machine, and I understand why they're doing it. I just don't like the fact that it's company specific. The reason why I'm okay with the ban is only because I believe in, I don't know how to say this word, reciprocity. So in
Reciprocity. Yep. Not
China,
bad.
X, Facebook, Google, they're all banned, right?
Okay.
So if the Chinese are banning the US social media apps,
Yeah.
America should have banned X, it should have banned TikTok that same next day.
Yeah.
Why wait a few years when now it's such an important part of the American pop culture and teenagers, and so I think America will ban it, and I'm okay with it. I just think it should have done it earlier and not wait for an election year.
Yeah. Is it, do you think it'll be banned? I wonder, it'll be interesting when the Senate takes it to the floor. Is it going to be right before the election, right after the election, and, the
I think this is the
Republican
nail in the
senators
coffin.
will push it.
I think this is
Yeah,
the nail in the coffin for Biden. I think Trump's going to win by
I do
by a
too.
considerable amount, and if TikTok gets banned, considering he depends on the youth, and the Taylor Swifties,
Yeah.
I think this will be goodbye Biden.
Yeah, I think so too. I agree with that. What do you think about the security
Yeah,
breach? Another big one is Temu, the Temu app. Have you heard of that one?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Of
I mean,
course,
that's
yeah.
another
Why not bring
Chinese
that to move?
one. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
I mean, that's another one where I think if TikTok is banned, that will be next here.
sure. I actually
Yeah.
feel bad for the I feel bad for the team and the investors at TikTok because of all the uncertainty that this has created. I don't know
Hmm.
if you saw the CEO of TikTok when he was questioned by the US Senate, and they were asking him, so, do you have a Chinese passport? And the guy goes, no, I'm from Singapore. And he goes, have you been ever rejected travel to China or China visa? He goes, no, I'm Singaporean and I don't need to. And then they're like, like questions about this. And, you know, already this happened a year ago, or a couple of years ago, and they went ahead with Project Texas, which is they
Yeah.
moved all the servers outside of China and they brought them back into the US.
Hmm.
And I think Oracle is hosting the servers in your
And of
home
course, in
state of Texas.
the Republican state of Texas.
Correct, right?
Yeah.
And they asked him the right question. If the Chinese CCP government ask
Mhm.
you for any information of the user's data, considering that you know the algorithms and you have all the data, will you grant them access to the data? And at the beginning, he didn't want to answer. He didn't want to say yes or no, but eventually it's come down to it, and he said no, and
Yeah,
that
I would
triggers
think
the
he would say
Chinese.
no in front of Congress, but then yes,
Sabrina,
that's going to trigger another
Sabrina, if
superpower. Yeah.
I mean, if the Chinese government owns ByteDance, which is a Chinese company,
Hmm.
and they ask their people to do something, I mean, it's look what happened to Jack Ma and all these Chinese billionaires who just disappear for months.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're probably put in prison that nobody knows of, and they're told, "Hey, listen, if you want to live, you know, if you think Putin is bad, imagine what Xi Jinping could do." I'd be
Yeah.
scared shitless
Imagine
of him.
like it's TikTok. It is, what this man is in front of Congress, testifying in front of Congress. But meanwhile, it's these kids using it and doing their dances and aren't even thinking about the repercussions,
I don't think it's about dancing. I think it's more about freedom of speech, right?
It is,
Americans are
and
so
that's a
gung
big
ho.
issue here. Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
correct. So,
regarding
Elon
this.
Musk,
Yeah,
X, freedom of
yeah.
speech, blah, blah, blah. Now, if you can't give your own people the freedom to express themselves and put whatever they want on TikTok, then, they really are going against freedom of speech. And the fact that this has reached such, it's in the House, Senate, etc. And the rest of the world is thinking, you guys don't know how to solve the gun issue, and you're here spending
Worrying about
time and money and
TikTok.
taxpayer money
It's so
on
true.
on on quarreling about freedom of speech and like entertainment.
Yeah,
uh
it always comes down to the dollar,
yeah,
The
yeah,
lobbyists are in each office,
sure,
trying to prove their point with money. So,
yeah. I actually think in the long term, Sabrina, once this whole, I don't think TikTok is shutting down. I think whether they divest it to a US company
mhm,
or they find some sort of creative
that's what I think
structure
will
to
happen.
license
Mhm,
out something, I think eventually the value of ByteDance and TikTok is going to go up, because
mhm. I do too.
once people know where they stand, uh, it's too popular to
Yeah,
just shut it down. Personally, and I think obviously money is going to win, and I believe there are US investors behind TikTok.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, I need to look that up. I'm interested in that. I don't know
Yeah.
what you'll do without TikTok.
uh, I mean, I'm more of a Twitter kind of guy, but I find TikTok my number one entertainment source. It's
Mhm.
overtaken YouTube. YouTube is my number one source for learning. So, podcasts, education, news is YouTube. For me, entertainment is TikTok, and Twitter is more for stock market, and I actually laugh on TikTok.
It's funny how the algorithms work because recently I noticed on Instagram I'm getting a lot of my news there.
Yeah,
And it's not just entertainment,
yeah,
so I'm actually getting news and I'll go there first and then I'll look at
yeah.
other places. Actually, I look at Wall first now.
Good one, Sabrina. Good one.
Our
Sabrina,
previous guest.
you are the one who brought to my attention that the new generation is using TikTok for their news.
Yeah,
It,
and
bl-
it's yeah,
it
news
blew me
and
away.
also for shopping, retail.
Yeah,
They go to TikTok for everything. I mean, it's a big deal here, like if they ban it, I think this TikTok generation will be um lost, but I think it will help Mark Zuckerberg quite a bit. Sure, he's
yeah.
lobbying for a
That's
big
one of the
ban.
conspiracy theories, that Nancy
Yeah.
Pelosi and the government owns so much shares of Meta that Meta is going to go up once
Look,
if
nowadays I
this is
would
banned.
not be surprised by that.
Yeah, I'm not that. I don't believe that part of the story, but you never know what's going to happen. I think it's going to be interesting, and I think ultimately TikTok will find a way of being operational.
Yeah.
I just think we're pissing off the Chinese every time more. Instead of becoming closer to them and trying to see eye to eye,
Yeah.
we find ways to piss them off. And like I said, like if I go to the end, I'm okay with the ban, just because they banned
Of
the
course.
American app.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, let's see what happens and let's bring on our guest and maybe he'll have some words of wisdom when it comes to that.
sounds good.
So we're excited to welcome Anish Reddy. He is the founder, managing director, and vice chairman of Capillary Technologies, a B2B software company that powers 500 plus loyalty programs thanks to its technology platform and expert services. Founded in 2012, Capillary has a strong global presence across the world, working with brands like Tata, Puma, Shell, Sephora, Domino's, Marks and Spencer's, and the list goes on, even includes 15 of the Fortune 100 companies. The platform's suite of products are all AI powered, and their tech stack has reached more than 1 billion end customers and 7 billion transactions a year. Welcome, Anish. It's nice to meet you.
Thanks, Sabrina and Amit, for having me here. Uh,
Yeah, we're
Anish,
excited to hear more about what you're doing.
Anish, I don't know if you remember, we met, I think 13, 14 years ago, and we even have some mutual friends. Do you remember?
Yep. I think that was when we were attempting to hit the US the first time over. And yeah, it seems like a lot of time has passed in between these two interactions, right? So yeah,
You have a bit less hair than what I remember.
and definitely more white hair.
Yeah, well, that's both of us. Also, I think we have mutual friends. I think you're closer to both of them than I am. Harminda Sani of Wazir and Rajan
Yep.
Anandan.
Harminder and Rajan happen to be amongst our earliest angels, right? Harminder even before Rajan, and they've been tremendous supports through the journey. Harminder, in fact, invested in us. Then he exited in one of the rounds. Then he again came back, a few years ago. So it's just in fact the initial years, I think he used to be our like he would do an introduction. I'd go meet the customer and we'd start a pilot, right? So he was like the demand gen engine and I was the sales engine, right? So it was like that. Rajan, of course, is I think almost like a founder to me in the company. He's stayed around for he's been on the board of the company for 10 plus years, and he's been this guiding force in uh, like most Indian entrepreneurs, I tend to dream in installments. You get to a place and then you think about the next dream. And, Rajan in that sense has been someone who spawned a lot of those dreams over the years for us at Capillary. So he's been a great support as well. Yeah.
Sure. I started a gifting e-commerce website. I think before Flipkart was even an e-commerce website. That early days, and I think Harminda immediately supported me to introductions. Rajan, I went to his house once. I met his lovely wife for dinner. He said, "You know what? If you raise around, I'll do a 5 lakh, 10 lakh angel. I'll help you out." I said, "No. If I raise 2 to 4 CR, then I'll come back for your money." And then I got a call from my brother. I ended up in Chile, and I shut down the company. But both of them were great help, and I noticed when I was researching that they've both been involved in Capillary. So it's a small world out there.
Yeah. I think, I've been incredibly lucky in the Capillary journey to have some really good folks support us through the years, right? It's been a 15-year journey, and time and again, we've been lucky to get people like Harminder in the first few years. Rajan came in around the 2010, 2011 timeframe, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
and like great investors, great team members. I think it's the people that build a company, right? It's not just the founders. So I think we've been lucky to have support from all directions.
I'll make sure I tag both of them when the episode comes out.
Got it.
So, can you tell us in layman's terms for us non techies what the company does?
Perfect. So we basically run loyalty programs for brands. So if you've gone to a retail store or to a hotel or to an airline, and you've got rewards, or points, or coupons or promotions, that's what we do for the various brands that work with us. For example, if you're in India, and you're part of the, Tata's have a program called Tata Neo, which is a group program across all their entities. So right from Titan to Taj Hotels to, Chroma, all the brands participate in it. So if you've got new coins, that whole stack runs on us. In the US, again, we work with a lot of the Fortune 100 customers. Shell is a large customer for us. Again, if you go to any of their fuel stations in Asia, they run a program called Go Plus, where you get points and rewards and things like that, including there's some exclusive Marvel merchandise, which you get on, like hitting a certain milestone or a threshold, right? So it's basically
Right.
engagement and building loyalty over a period of time. That's what the
Okay. And
platform enables our customers to.
Sephora is one of them, correct? That you guys work with.
Yeah. So Sephora's program in India runs on us. That's a very interesting program. I think it's one of the more successful programs that runs on our platform globally. I think
Okay.
they're a great brand, and if the program is structured very differently from the usual loyalty programs that you see out there.
Okay.
It's quite a range. It's quite a range,
So
right?
I have
So
a daughter who just turned 11 on Monday, and she wanted to go shopping on her birthday, and I guess TikTok is now calling these young girls, these tweens that want to go to Sephora, the Sephora kids. It's a new generation, and so she'll be excited to know that her loyalty program, I spoke to the founder of it.
No, I wanted to congratulate you on your latest round of funding. Another $45 million in the bag in this difficult market is no doubt shows that what you're doing in the US in the last 1 year is obviously working. Uh, but before talking about funding and the business, I want to say that I was incredibly impressed by your 2 episode marathon with Rohin Dharma Kumar. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing his name badly. The podcast is called the Ken Podcast. The way you opened up in that podcast, you spoke about your co-founder calling you a bully. You spoke about your family. You spoke about the getaways. I thought it was just an incredible 2 episode podcast, and most of the topics that I want to discuss today actually stem from your conversation with Rohin. Tell us, I mean, is this normal for you to like open up so vividly as you did?
I think I'd say over the last 15 years, as a founder, I probably lived life in two parts or two stages in some senses. I think the first stage was probably this what I sometimes call as all the world is a stage. Uh, you know, 5-7 years. Like as founders,
Hmm.
you're constantly selling, right? Especially when you've started off, you're selling to employees, you're selling to, your own parents, you're selling to everyone, right? You're selling to customers,
Yeah.
and you get into this mode of like, all the world is a stage. And I think sometime through, I think probably 18, 19 is when I realized that, you know, like, wow, like, where have you, where have you got to, right? And I think that's when I realized that there is a lot of power in being vulnerable, right? Is in being honest and being transparent, in telling people what's happening. And I think, and once you remove this wheel of the stage, I think people benefit from you. I mean, everyone learns from mistakes you made. You learn from uh, help that you get from people, right? When people know that you're honest and you're vulnerable, you tend to get that much more back, right? So I think it was a switchover sometime probably in the 15, 16, 17 time frame in those 3-4 years when I realized that this, it's uh, it's okay to be vulnerable as a founder, right? And yeah, I think the last 3, 4, 5 years it's been that way, right? So uh, yeah.
Anish, you come from a family of doctors, and you did not pursue that path. How did you decide, you know what, I'm not going to follow this family norm and I'm going to follow this other path? And then where did the idea of loyalty programs, how did that come about as well? So twofold question.
Right. So I think the credit of me not becoming a doctor goes to my dad, right? So we two brothers. And both my parents are doctors. My dad's a radiologist, my mom's a gynecologist, and my brother's a cardiologist, right? So my sister-in-law is also a gastroenterologist. So it's just like we can set up a hospital in our family. But when I think in my ninth grade is when my dad came and asked me that, look, what do you want to become? And I said, look, probably a doctor, right? I mean, everyone looks up to your parents. And
Yeah.
I looked at them and I was like, yeah, I mean, I kind of want to be a doctor. And then he sat me down and, I think he had this conversation where he said, look, I mean, it takes a lot of patience to be a doctor, right? I mean, you meet all kinds of people. It takes years to become a doctor, right? So he sat me down and said, look, I think knowing you, I think you don't have as much patience as a doctor needs. So you might be. It might be better that you choose. And I was pretty good at acad, so it didn't matter whether it was math or biology or sciences. I was pretty good in all of them, right? So, I mean, I would struggle with languages for sure. But, so he then sat me down and said, look, I think, do you want to try out engineering instead, right? That probably your attitude is probably more well aligned to be on the engineering or the non-doctor side, because doctors really need a lot of patience. And he was right? I mean, I as a kid used to be this impatient kid, and always had this thing of wanting to do something new all the time, right? So it just so he really sat me down, and like it seemed like a fair conversation. And I was anyway doing well in math. So that's kind of how I ended up not becoming or not taking up medicine. Right. So that's the first question from you. The second part was, I think at the end of, between Krishna, who's my co-founder, who Amit has also met, and me, I think, we had set up the entrepreneurship cell back in Kharagpur at IIT Kharagpur. So we kind of knew that there was this bug to do something on our own, right from our third year in undergrad. We then went and worked for a couple of companies. Like I worked for ITC, he worked for Microsoft Research, and a couple of years into our jobs, we were not finding purpose in what we were doing. We were both doing very well. We were getting our promotions. We were getting our salary increases. We were, for 22-year-olds, I think we had a lot of money in the bank, right? But it was this question of, how are you contributing to the bigger picture that I think was biting both of us? And so we decided to start. This was, I still remember, it was his birthday, Jan 19th of 2008. We both had a few glasses of wine, and we were like, I think it's time to, and we didn't have to send money home, right? If you think about it, we're probably the first generation in India where we didn't have to send any money home, right? So all the money that we were earning was really sitting in our bank accounts. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we said, let's take a couple of years and try something out, right? So, and again, we didn't have a great idea on what we wanted to do. So we kind of went the investor way of saying, let's pick two sectors that are doing well and do something in between them. So as those sectors grow, you will grow with it, right? So we did a little bit of reading up, McKinsey reports, etc. Retail and mobile were both taking off in India. This was 2008, 2007 type time frame, right? And so we decided to do something in retail and mobile. And because we didn't know what to do, we went with the way of saying, let's speak to everyone we know in retail and the telecom operator space and decide what we want to do, right? So we quit our jobs and started in August of 2008, exactly a month before Lehman Brothers tanked. We started on August 11th, Lehman tanked on September 11th, right? So it was just, and it was Diwali time, same store sales were down, there was a recession, and everyone we spoke to, we spoke about 50 different brands. We would go into a mall and go store by store and ask people saying, look, we took kids from IIT, we can build good software, tell us what your problems are, right? And time and again, people would say our sales are down, our customers aren't coming back. If you can get our customers back to store, we'd love to work with you, right? And then we would ask them, look, do you know who your customers are? And a lot of them would say, no, we don't know. Because it was kind of like the pre-Amazon era where retail was more trading. You would buy stuff, put it in your store, and it would sell, right? So to solve that problem, we kind of figured that loyalty is the best way to, get customer data and then keep in touch. So that's how really we got into the loyalty management space.
I love it. This is genius. I just assumed with each company, and I have all these loyalty programs too. I just assumed each company creates their own, and then it's all in-house. But I had no idea it was outsourced until I started reading about you. This is fantastic. I love it.
I must say that the software comes from us, Sabrina. I mean, it's still owned by the customer, right? So it's their program. We make life easy for them. We make it easy for them to build deep relationships with customers. But it's their program. It's not outsourced to us. The software is ours. That's pretty much it,
Okay.
right? So
Okay. Still, fantastic.
I've actually followed Anish over the last 15 years, your story. Every time, you're in the press, I read about it and your success stories. But the reason why I enjoyed Rohin's podcast so much was because of the failures that I did not know and how you dealt with those failures. Maybe if you could tell us a little bit about, when your co-founders both left you within a couple of months, when they called you a bully, and how that eventually led to which the executive coaching and the vipassanas, which I really want to get into.
Yeah, I read that your former partner called you a bully, and I was like, right now you're so nice. I can't even fathom that.
I must say that I was a hard guy to work with. I don't think KK was wrong on it. Not only him, we got an exec coach in around that point in time, and we had a 360 done, right? I mean, if you know the exec coaching process, the coach would come and speak to about 15, 20 people in the org, and I don't think it was just that KK could show the mirror to me. As a founder, I think very rarely do people show you a mirror as a founder, right? I mean, it's just that there's just so much halo around a founder that. So I think KK did absolutely the right thing by saying, look, I think, and we knew each other forever, right? We were from 2003 onwards. I think we used to live on the same floor at IIT. So I think as a 25-year-old, when you see a lot of life working for you and success, you tend to take credit for it, right? I think that's kind of what probably happened to me, and and then it gets to your head, right? I mean, at 25 or 26, 27, if you have $500,000 or $1 million in your bank, it's very different, right? And I think it did get to me. I was 2 years after that I think KK said, look, I think this is not working out. I wish I was wiser then. Thankfully, it obviously, I did mention this on the Ken podcast as well. I think, KK was like really like almost there in everything I did from 2003 to like 2013, 14, right? So someone as close coming and saying, look, it's become hard to work with you and this is not working out. And then saying, look, you seem to be behaving like a bully, is more than just professionally impacting you, right? It's also takes you up at a very fundamental level, right? So it's almost like a pillar of support, just saying, okay, it's gone now, right? So I think my first reaction to it was saying, look, hey probably I'm not doing this right. We spoke to we've had good people on the board always. So I spoke to Venkat, who's the founders at Daksh, which was the first BPO in the country. He was our first board member. And he said that, look, don't overreact, get an exec coach. You're 27, 28. How many 27, 28-year-old run like 400, 500 people companies? So
Yeah.
it's okay. I mean, like, as long as you're willing to don't take any harsh, random, you don't want to do this type stuff, just get an exec coach. I think the exec coaching process was, of course, a very painful process, right? Because I think the way it works is for the first time, you're shown the mirror too many times.
I think
like
it's humbling.
therapy.
Right?
It
I think it's
sounds like it
humbling. I
was
think it's great.
Yeah, but it was like therapy, I'm sure. Like all your faults or vulnerabilities were coming out.
Yeah. I think so. And my exec coach was also a very senior guy. He was on the board of Levers. He had set up Alpenliebe and Perfetti in India, and then Sam Miller in India. So he meant business, right? So he was not this soft exec coach who would like say, okay, probably people might have not understood you right. So I remember these conversations. We would meet every 2 weeks. And he would come in and say, look, here's what I heard from the last 3 conversations I had. And he would say something, and I'd say, oh, that person probably said this because of this, and he'd say, no, I think, there's a pattern here, right? So, and I'm very grateful to that whole process, because I think it kind of broke me down and then kind of built you back bit by bit, right? You pick your main 3 areas that you really think are the biggest points of feedback, and then you do very small things, right? So, for example, as a founder, you're running very hard, right? So you get into a meeting, people say, okay, this is the problem. Even without fully listening to what folks want, you would kind of say, okay, do this and it'll solve itself, right? So while the right way to do it would have been to hear everyone out and then have your opinion at the last, right? As simple as that. So one of the things I was told to do, or rather we agreed to do at that point in time, was that I will be the last guy to speak in a meeting. Very simple changes, right? So, and I thought they had a reasonably transformative impact on me, even on the team, right? I think when you go to the team and say, hey guys, look, I think, these are the 4-5 feedbacks that I've heard from you, and I would really want to change on this. I think that's being vulnerable, right? And the team then, knows that you want to change. And when you give them the power of saying, look, the next time I do this, please call out, right? Please call me out saying, look, hey, you're doing the same thing again, right? So I think that really helps. In fact, a lot of friends who know me closely, I think definitely believe that I was a different guy before I turned 30 and after I turned 30, right? So
Wow.
Yeah. So I think it's all been,
I tell you,
I would strongly recommend that if you're an entrepreneur, get an exec coach probably every 5-7 years, right? So
I'm actually Sabrina's executive coach.
No.
Yeah. So Sabrina, do you know Anish does something every couple of years, which I admire, I need, and yet I'm admitting to you and the world that I cannot do, which
Okay.
is go away and for 10 days not speak, not communicate, no phone, no internet, and maybe spend hours in the day cross-legged, sitting down with that Indian pose. He does that often, and he said, not only him, anyone who's done it, it's totally transformative. It's called a Vipassana retreat. Sabrina, before Anish tells us about it, could you do that, Sabrina?
I could stop communicating with the outside world, but I don't know if I cannot speak to someone near me for 10 days. I think
American
it would take
comes
a
out.
lot of practice. Yeah, the American comes out. It would take a lot of practice, but I mean, that says a lot about Anish, your mental state. How did this come about? What was someone told you about it and you said, let me try it? How did this come about?
It's a holiday. It's an extension to the holidays in the workplace. Tell us about it.
Yeah. I think, like I mentioned, right, as a founder, I think I've been fairly lucky. We've seen a lot of success as a company. We've survived a lot of chaos, but we've also seen a lot of downturns, right? We've seen hard times. I've seen, for reasons more because of me than anything else, my co-founders moving on. We've always raised a lot of money, but I must say that, we've also had the problem of doing many things in the firm, at least in the early years or in the middle years, the confused years. I think I'd say from 2015 to 18, 19, when we just did a lot of stuff, right? So, and then running out of the money, growing to 1,000 people org when we should probably have been like 1/3 the size at that point in time. And do this for 10 years. And at least in my case, I was kind of just blaming myself for where we were in 2018, 19 as a time frame, right? I mean, if you think of it, we had raised about 100 million till then, or probably a little bit more. I think 110. We had bought a couple of companies. We had got to about give and take like 26, 27 million in run rates. we'd done fine, but we were burning a lot of money at that point in time. It was a very large team, very large sales team as well. I Both my co-founders had moved on. I'd placed a lot of bets on saying, okay, let's open China, let's build an AI product, which is totally orthogonal to what we did as a company. It didn't tie with our core loyalty product; it was just another product in the AI space. We were experimenting with mid-market SMB, and when you're doing so many things, when you're spreading down the talent that you have in an organization into 25 things, it only slows you down, right? And especially when you've not addressed the macro, which is that you're probably not playing in a large enough space. Like till 2020, we just used to do retail loyalty, right? And that was probably a $300 million space in Asia. We were at, inching at 30 million. And once you're at 10% of a market, it's very hard to grow at the 50, 60% type pace anymore, right? So here I was, it was 2019, I turned 35, and, it's like, when you have a wedding week, right? You take a few weeks off, you go and do a diet and you're back, right? You're back to your normal, normal weight or stuff, right? But you don't do that with your mind, right? You're constantly piling on all of this, right? So I think end of 2019, I was in this place where I would just have, my mind would just keep wandering to the past, and I would keep blaming myself, saying, both your co-founders moved on because of you, the company's in a very bad place because of you. It'll probably be a suboptimal outcome for investors and employees because of you. There was no way we would have won in China. Why did you open that market? So with all these voices in your head, right, which would just like
depression.
Much later did I realize that that if your mind is wandering in the past a lot, you're probably depressive. I didn't know it at that point in time, right? So I really didn't.
And you haven't even mentioned, with all the company things going on in your head, you haven't even mentioned that you have a family, so you have those obligations as well. So that's probably weighing on you.
I think I have the most understanding wife in the world. So when people put out all these memes on the on the internet about their wives, I just can't understand it. I think she's an angel, and she's always given me space, right? So whether I've struggled, whether anything's happened, so that side of life has been really the anchor, the stable side of my life, right? So, but anyway,
I'm gonna make my wife listen to this episode, Sabrina.
Can you repeat that? I think
So here I was, 35.
Sorry, I was just sorry to interrupt, Anish. I said what he said about his wife. I'm gonna make sure my wife listens to this episode as well, so that she knows that it is possible to be that support for your loving husband. Sorry, Anish, I didn't mean to cut you off. Please go ahead.
No problem, right? So, but just going back to the Vipassana thing, Sabrina, I think. So I was 35. We're a group of about 8 friends from school. We've gone to from our kindergarten to our 10th grade together. We're extremely thick, and different parts of the world. All of us flew into Goa for our 35th, like get together, birthday party, whatever, right? So, and we were all sitting and chatting to get drunk.
Of course, you're partying.
Yeah, and we were all, it was late in the night. We were all talking about what life's done to each of us. And I think I said something to the tune of, that life is only going to be downhill from here. And this is a group I'm generally not in this, all the world is a stage mode, right? So, I mean, this is people who've seen me grow up, like, from, right? So, and that kind of shook everyone up. Like, why is this guy saying this, right? I mean, and all of them know.
At 35.
At 35, right? So, and so one of my friends, Karthik, who's a venture capitalist with IFC, and so he, at the halfway through that conversation, he pulled me out and he said we should chat. So we walked about, and then he said, "Look, I think you just seem to be like really busy in your mind. I'd done this thing called a Vipassana about 3 years ago when I was also very busy in my life. It really helped. I think you should go and do one. Right. So this was December of 2019. And and like these are guys I would trust with my life. Right. And I was also just so mentally broken in my head that if someone said there's a solution to this, I was like, okay, I'm going. Right. So, and so Feb 1st is when, I found a slot. It's very, you can find, there are about 400 centers globally, and it's free. But it's hard to find a slot in like Bangalore or stuff. So I ended up finding a slot in this small village called Pocharam, where someone had donated a house and they just, run these courses for free. And, so I went in, it was 10 days, Feb 1st to Feb 10th, 11th. So while I was going in, COVID had just broken, right? So
Yeah, I was going to
we had a
ask, it was
small business in,
2020.
yeah. So, while I was going in, it was this, China had just gone into lockdowns. It was Jan end when China went into lockdowns. We had a small, about 5-10% of our revenue came from China. We had 50 employees in China at that point in time. And I went into the Vipassana, and it was, so it's very simple. It's actually not as painful as people make it sound. One, you have a single room with an attached toilet, all that stuff, right? So it's quite good.
Hygienic.
Food is decent. It's hygienic. It's, food is decent. You anyway don't know anyone else there. So it's not like you have a lot to talk about, right? So the not talking is the easier part.
Okay.
I think is the easiest part of it. But I think what you do is, the first 3.5 days, you, like every day you sit down for about 10 hours and look at your breath. It's basically the Buddha's model of meditation, right? So, so the Buddha, if you, he broke it into two parts. One was the Anapana and then the Vipassana part. The first 3.5 days you do Anapana, which is you're basically looking at your breath, right? And what you're trying to do is, if you try to look at your breath for even 5 minutes, your mind will wander away, right? It will wander away, and then you just bring your breath back, right? So what you're basically doing is every time this thought comes of you messed the company up, all you're supposed to do is go back to your breath, right? In a usual case, you will roll in that thought for 20 minutes, you will slide down, it's just painful, right? So here you're kind of building resistance to that, right? You're really building resistance to all these negative thoughts that come in your mind, right? So you do this for, let's say, 10 days. Vipassana is a little bit more. At the end of the 4th day, you start looking at sensations in your body and stuff like that. So by the end of the 10th day, what had happened with me was, when these thoughts would come, I would have this small pause, and I would then decide, yeah, I'm not jumping on this train, that I'm not going with this thought, right? So I will just go back to my, so it just cleared up, like, I'd say 80-90% of the garbage that was in my head.
That's fantastic.
Right? I
Did
just
you
felt
feel like
like
you
I
came back a
was
new person?
like a 22-year-old again, just getting out of campus. Right? So it was just remarkable.
That's great. Yeah.
Ask all our guests what success means to them. You've obviously been through a lot. Can you give us your definition of success today?
I think, obviously I mentioned that, I tend to dream in installments, right? As most entrepreneurs do. I think when we started Capillary, success for me really was, me and of course KK as well, was really about building a good company, building a good culture, right? So we didn't come from this unicorn era of founders, right? We came from the 2008 era when starting up wasn't very cool. It was not fancy. It was not, even your parents would oppose you if you want to start up back then. Right. So success for us, in fact, I remember having this conversation with KK that, I think if in a year or two we can pay ourselves the same salaries we're making in ITC and in Microsoft, I think that would be success. Right. So that was really, a good company where we can pay our own salaries, was really the start point. Right. So, and I think by within 2 years we got there, right? We were generating $1 million plus. In about 3 years, we were generating a couple of $1 million in annual revenues. And that's when we kind of started, the angels came in. They were very supportive, right? Around 2012 is when the VCs came in, the ecosystem started heating up. And we ended up raising a massive Series A, right? Like a $16 million Series A, when everyone else used to raise $1 million at max, right? So in their Series A. And I think that got to our head somewhere. And that's when, this whole thing of, let's build this growth at all costs type company kind of became the definition of success, right? Till then, if you won a large customer, you'd come back home, it would be a small gang, you would all celebrate, you would party. But I think then it suddenly just became that, you would just go from one thing to the next. You would never have this time to celebrate and stuff, right? So that rinse and repeat played for many years, right? So in fact, we just, I think some of the mistakes that I did as a founder, we should never have bought this e-commerce platform play in 2015. It was just that everyone else was earning billions of dollars on the e-commerce side in the consumer internet space. So we said, we should also do something on e-commerce, right? Total bad idea, right? So the year after that, we raised a lot of money. So we said, okay, we'll build an AI product. Success started becoming, unfortunately, saying, okay, if something is working for someone else, let's do that, and, like raise this large round, hire this big guy. Some of that ended up becoming a measure of success. I think it was only in the Vipassana that I realized that, look, we give ourselves too much credit for the good or the bad, right? If things are great, we think it's all because of us. If, at least in my case, if things are bad also, I think I used to think it's all because of me, right? So I think somewhere in Vipassana, I realized that, we're all just living through cycles of life, right? Your good things come, good things go, bad things come, bad things go, right? So, in my view, at least now, I think I've redefined success to be definitely not money. I think, beyond the first 30, 35 crores, even that's a lot, right? Beyond the first 10, 15 crores, probably money is not going to change your life meaningfully, right? So in my head, I think success has been a little bit more about saying, let's build Capillary into a company which survives me, right? So whether I'm there, whether I'm not there, it should be a great firm. Success to me at Capillary has also been a lot about how well our employees are doing, not only as financially, but also personally, right? We have this, unlike most companies, we have a very active inner peace, agenda, right? So every year in the company, you can take a 10-day Vipassana over and above your annual leaves. Every 4 years, you get a full month off as a sabbatical. We run these retreats every 6 months where over 100 people have come in. And finally, I think success for me has also been, since the post-Vipassana world has been to say, how equanimous can I be, right? Irrespective of what comes in, can I be this Buddha, for the lack of a better word, right? That can you just be equanimous? Yeah. So at least I measure myself on saying, how much did I not be equanimous, right? So eventually I want to get to a place where nothing shakes you, right? So yeah.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. In this podcast, we learned that the most successful people are avid readers. What books have had an impact on your life that we could share with our guests?
That's a good question, actually. So I've on the entrepreneurship side, I think, look, one of my favorite books is, of course, Hard Thing About Hard Things, right? So that's a great book. The Lean Startup is a great book as well. If you think of Built to Last or Good to Great, those are, again, really solid, good books, right? Of course, I do read a lot on the spiritual side as well. I think as I did my first Vipassana, it was just remarkable, right? That in 10 days, I kind of cleaned my mind up 80%, right? So I started reading about the Buddha, about meditation and stuff, right? So I think there's an amazing book which kind of has a very scientific approach to what the Buddha taught. It's called The Mind Illuminated. It's by this neuroscience PhD called John Yates. It's an amazing book. It's almost like a workbook. That's a great book. Of course, I've read Be As You Are by, it's basically a question and answer format of Ramana Maharshi's teachings, right? So, yeah, a lot of books I read today are a little bit on saying how is Buddhist philosophy different from Advaita, which is traditionally how Indian philosophy, the Indian religious philosophy is a little bit more Advaita, right? So Ramana Maharshi's Advaita, Buddha, of course, is not Advaita as much, but there are lots of similarities. So, off late, the last 4-5 years, again, if you look at Michael Singer is an author who's written The Surrender Experiment and The Untethered Soul. Like, I think these are the Surrender Experiment is a must read for founders, right? So it's the guy who, again, a founder, and he basically surrendered to life at the age of 22 or 23. Ended up building what today is part of WebMD as a company. Listed the company on NASDAQ, and he basically lists down his journey saying, look, life just took me everywhere, right? So that's a lovely book. I think some of these are probably in my top 10, right? So
I love it.
Sabrina, we have a lot of reading to do. Anish,
I
I want to be respectful of your time. You mentioned you have to leave in 10 minutes. So we're going to jump into a rapid fire. Sabrina and I will shoot some questions. If you can just give us short 1 word, 2 word, answers, that would be great. I'll start, Sabrina.
Mm-hmm.
As a seasoned entrepreneur, can you rank in order of importance focus, team, capital, and luck? Which plays the biggest role as you grow? Focus, team, capital, and luck.
luck is the first, right? The second is team. The third is focus. The fourth is capital.
Thank you. Sabrina?
Okay. If you could meet any historical figure, who would it be and why?
It would be Ramana Maharshi.
Why?
I've been to the ashram many times, right? So I told you about this mind-wandering thing I have, right? So, and it's an ashram in Tiruvannamalai, which is in Tamil Nadu. It's about 3.5-hour drive from Bangalore. I go in there and I don't know what happens, but my mind just calms down, right? I don't even need to sit and meditate or, and they say that when he lived, his way of, whatever teaching was just silence. You would go sit in around him and you would just feel silence, right? Your mind would calm down and, and I'm like, if the place where he operated out of continues to have that level of silence, I think it'd be remarkable to meet someone like that, right? So, yeah.
It's your happy place. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
A lot of founders come to me and talk to me about, what they're going through, given that I've been, when they hear about my journey in that sense. And I sometimes feel that if I could just get this noise in your mind out, right? If I had some superpower like Ramana Maharshi to say like that, and all the noise is gone in your head, I'd love that superpower if I could do that for myself and for others, right? That
So,
the
peace of
ability
mind.
to just
Peace of mind.
peace of mind for not only me. I think I'm in a decent
Yeah.
place now on that, but for people around as well, right? I think
Okay, great.
a lot of people
Sabrina,
fight
peace
with
of
their
mind.
minds. Yeah.
Good one.
I like
Okay.
that one.
It's a
I've
good one.
never heard that one.
Yeah.
I like it. Um, what do you like to do for fun? Your favorite hobby?
Well, what do I the morning half of not the morning half, the morning 2 hours of the day are mine. Before the world opens up. So 5 to 6 every morning I sit for an hour of Vipassana. And then 6 to 7 I do an hour of yoga. So that's my 2 hours in the day. The rest of the day is not controlled by you as a founder. It's just like stuff happening. But as a family, we have this ritual of at least traveling out once a month. All four of us, and Bangalore is lovely that way, right? You can go for safaris, you can go to the hills, you can do whatever you want to, right? So traveling, with the kids, the four of us, we have a lovely dog. We take the dog along as well. We take Rowdy along as well. So yeah, I think would be the second closest hobby.
Okay, great.
Sabrina, I'm going to skip the rest of the rapid fire because we have to wrap up in a few minutes. I want to end with something that struck me at the end of the Ken podcast when he asked you about the purpose of life, and you mentioned that that's something that is still something a work in progress. Now that you've had time to think about that, I'd like your answer on purpose of life. What is it today at the moment? Where do you stand? Because I have that problem as well. I don't have an answer. So I look up to you, Anish. So I really would like your thoughts on that.
Uh, for many years, I thought the purpose of what I was doing was, was very transient, right? You would set a purpose, you would kind of somewhere get there, and then you would say, okay, this is the next purpose in life, or this is the next dream. So
Objectives, tick.
and yeah, exactly, right.
Yeah.
Financial independence, raise whatever, a large
Baby,
like
check.
whatever, right? So
Yeah,
maybe stuff like that,
check.
right? So
Yeah,
I begin to believe that probably the purpose of life is to get you to a state where you're equanimous irrespective of what's happening, right? Or you're so. I think the purpose of this life, at least for me, is to get to that state of being extremely, like, Rohan asked this question, and then I've had obviously 2 months, 3 months to think about it. I think in this life, I feel my purpose has been met if I can get to a state of extreme equanimity, right? That even in a moment, I'm not like swayed by this wandering mind or by, what's happening, right? So just extreme peace in that sense. But extreme peace not by withdrawing from life and becoming an ascetic, but by being very active, right? That you are very involved, but you don't allow stuff to like impact you, right? That uh, I don't know if I made sense, but I hope I
No,
hope
it
I made
does.
sense. Yeah.
crystal clear. Yeah.
Yes.
Anish, thank you so much for coming on and catching up. And where do you live at the moment? Are you in Bangalore or?
Yeah, I'm based in Bangalore, Amit, but I spend like 80, 100 days in the US every year. Uh,
Okay.
Okay.
so the kids and family are here. But, we do the summers in the US, and of course, there's lots of work travel to the US, right? So based on a jet plane,
Sure.
mostly. So,
Yeah. No, I'm in India every Jan. So next Jan when I come to India, I'll reach out to touch base. But thanks a lot for doing this, Anish, and I wish you all the best in whatever you set yourself to do. And obviously, I'll continue to follow Capillary's growth around the world.
thanks, Amit. Thanks, Sabrina. It was a pleasure
Yes.
speaking to both of you. Thank you.
Yes, it was so nice meeting you and learning about your journey. I say like pre 35 and post 35 have been so different. So I look forward to hearing more about what you do. If you are ever in Texas, I'm in San Antonio. So please, you know, give me a call, send me an email. We'd love to meet up. But thank you again. And this has been another episode of Indian Explorers, a very fascinating one. I hope you enjoyed it as well, everyone. Thank you.